What's going on, guys? David Eickholt and Eliot Clough here for HawkeyeInsider.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. No Sean today, but Sean's going to be in the Chicago area preparing for Big Ten Media Days. We'll talk a little bit more about that and the Iowa men's basketball team later, but obviously the excitement of Ben McCollum, Bennett Sturts getting every preseason honor across the board. And I know this will be more in our preview episodes, Eliot, but maybe this isn't a hot take. It probably is not. But I think Bennett Sturts is probably the best Iowa point guard in the last 40 years.
BJ Armstrong.
That's the other one.
Yeah.
That's the other one.
That's all I got. I mean, of our lifetime.
By the way, again, 40 years. So maybe 85. Andre Woolridge. Anyway, he's in the conversation.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going.
Well, he'll be able to solidify that this year. As the season progresses, but right now it would not surprise me if that's the trajectory he's on. You just can't speed him up, And we decided we weren't going to lead with basketball, and we won't. We'll get to Gronowski, but man, I mean, the last staff the last staff basically didn't recruit guards. So of course you got Brock Harding in there, and
I think they were very good at identifying talent early. And they were always the bridesmaid.
Yep, they were.
That's the issue. We won't. I know people will always compare the two staffs, and that's just inevitable when people coach at the same schools. The one thing you couldn't knock from the previous regime is they had an eye for talent, under the radar talent. They got the most out of a lot of different players, and obviously, some of the times they were the first school to offer a guy, then they blow up in the top 30. It's just the way it was, right? But Bennett Sturts, obviously, again, I think he'll be a preseason All-Big Ten, probably preseason All-American by a couple different outlets as the season continues to get closer. Women's is today. I'm going to have more coverage about that at HawkeyeInsider.com. But football progresses. Bye week is done with a lot of different storylines. To recap before we get into Gronowski, Eliot, sounds like no Jane Harrell, a middle linebacker. Did not think his injury was that serious when he went down against Indiana, but maybe something else lingered. But then again, we could say the same thing about Jazz Patterson, right? And they're going to be without Jazz Patterson. Sounds like they're going to get Xavier Williams back. And Reese Vanderzee finally has a chance to play, which is about what the expected timetable was when we reported several weeks ago that it was going to be – they were going to try to target this. I'm anticipating 15 snaps for him. I don't think he's going to get extended run. But we'll dive into Wisconsin a little bit. But, Eliot, based on everything you heard from Kirk Ferentz yesterday, from the players yesterday, how do we start reading into this Mark Gronowski situation about is he going to play against Wisconsin?
The way I've felt for the last week and a half, 2 weeks is no. You don't even need to run the risk because Wisconsin's not very good, right? I mean, they played some tough teams, but they're just really not that good. Straight up. You can win this game. Iowa can win this game with Hank Brown as their starter. I don't know. Jeremy Hecklinsky is much more of a question mark because he's younger. It wasn't around for the spring. But you can win this game with Hank Brown as your starter. You won there with Deacon Hill as your starter. You can win this game. The defense isn't what it was in 2023, right? But to me, you just don't need to take the risk. I mean, losing this game would probably derail the season because they're not going to beat Penn State. Well, they could beat Penn State. They're not going to beat Penn State and Oregon, right? No, Dante Moore is we were questioning it to go into the season. I think Sean and I both picked. You're not going to beat USC more than likely either. They're just the schedule's wild. If you lose to Wisconsin right now, 5-7 becomes much more of a reality than we thought it was to start the season. That's the main thing. At the same time, do you risk it one way or another? You risk it and you start Mark and he gets hurt and it gets hurt worse and he's out for multiple weeks or the rest of the season. Or two, you risk it and you run with Hank Brown or maybe Jeremy Hecklinsky and you might, throw a pick or two or things go awry for whatever reason offensively and you lose the game. So you're risking things one way or another. It depends on which sort, because Kirk is calculating the risk. as the minutes go along until Saturday, right? It is going to be a calculated risk. How do they do it? How do they operate? I mean, I think I was given some incorrect information, but I think Wisconsin's done actually pretty well against the run so far this year.
They have.
Okay.
They have.
So that throws a monkey wrench in your plans too, because you can't just lean on Kamari Moulton. You can't.
It's
just
like the
lean
one good thing they've done on defense. I think they have a lot of the second fewest rushing yards, but like their tackling hasn't been good. They're getting beat up in the secondary, but like it's not like an average Wisconsin defense, right? It's still a good. I don't want to call it good defense.
Middle of the road.
Yes, yeah, slightly over the middle of the road. I mean, they can string together consecutive stops, right? I mean. Yes, Alabama did what Alabama does, but Ty Simpson's arguably the Heisman at this point in the year also, right? Michigan couldn't do much, but again, I think Bryce Underwood's a work in progress. But, like, it's been really interesting watching Wisconsin, kind of the fall of it. And I'll tell you, man, and this is another aspect. I might get Wisconsin fans pissed at this. This is their Super Bowl. They're not making a bowl game. This is the most winnable game left on their schedule. I would argue. Night game. Obviously, they just lost to Michigan. They go on the road at Minnesota, but like they have death row right now, man. And I think that's kind of my big thing with them. But you're right when it comes to, you know, they got to weigh this out. And I did my podcast with Tyler Kluver from the Wash Up Walk-Ons earlier today, Elliot, and I posted a question to him, and I want to throw it back at you real quick. What percentage healthy would you feel comfortable Mark going out there on?
80, 85 okay. Maybe. Like 85 is where I feel comfortable. 80 is like, okay, you know, 75, 80 is you're pushing it. But also, like, you have to factor, can he run? Because that's probably the best part of his game. I mean, because if he can't run and if it's just pocket passer, put Hank Brown in there.
Here's my fear, and it does tie together, right? I said 90. If you throw him out at 80 and you say, you know, Mark, you got to change your game. You got to become a pocket passer. This is one of Mark's best qualities, and it's his competitiveness. He's got that dog in him. You don't get the accolades that he has without having that dog in you, right? If he gets on the field and has too much time in the pocket, what does he naturally do? Runs out. Continues to extend the play, look downfield. Maybe he's going to go off and run. If it's 3rd and 3 and he says, hey, I have to stay in the pocket this play, but he sees a wide open lane, but he has to go, maybe he has to truck somebody over to get the last couple inches. You and I both know he's going to do it. That's the competitor he is. And at that point, you're continuing to risk the injury, right? And then you don't have him for Penn State. Don't have him against Minnesota. Maybe you don't have him against Oregon. It's very interesting, kind of the science behind it. And I'll tell you, I don't trust Mark to not do that. And that's not a shot at not a shot at his character, his coachability. It's just the competitor that you have when you get in those high pressured environments, right?
If anything, it's an endorsement of his character and his ability.
Bingo.
Yeah.
I said 90. And I think you give him one more week to get fully healed up. Medically clear does not mean you're ready to go. I know people are reading in between the lines there. He would not have played this past Saturday. I know, again, Kirk said he was medically cleared last week. I'm not saying I don't buy it, but Elliot, you and I both know he was not playing last Saturday if there was a game.
No, he was not.
I think you rest him. And then you have a complete game plan with Hank. And I have my theory on how practice is going and what Kirk's thinking is. But how would you respond to that? Because that's kind of like my whole thought process about it.
So apologies if you heard the I was looking for a word in the transcript from Kirk yesterday, because here's the quote that he said. It was a question from Chad Leistico. Is it more of he needs to strengthen around the knee in rehab, or is it more just pain tolerance? And a little bit leading into this, qualifying his response, because Kirk loves to remind us that he's not a doctor. But he said, It's a matter of what he can do effectively. I just threw in the word confidence. That's going to be the number one conversation at the end of the week, that you can go out there and play well, play effectively, not be thinking about it, not trying to protect yourself, that type of deal. That doesn't do anybody any good. So if Mark is out there trying to run but not feeling confident in that knee, like we've all been there before. We've been playing pickup where you have like you're coming off a tweaked ankle or you busted your knee against the coffee table before going to play flag football and it just doesn't feel right. Like we know exactly what he's talking about right there. You don't trust the ability for the knee to really hold up, especially if he takes a shot. Now, he's kind of gone off and on with the leg brace. Am I right? Like throughout the season, I think he started with it and then took it off and then tried to put it on again and tried to go against Indiana and it didn't feel right. So how much stabilization do you feel with that leg brace? Does it change your ability to feel like you can take a hit with that knee? Are you going to roll with it or not? Or is it just across the board a no-go? Because like you mentioned, so 90%, most people are going to be like, yeah, okay, we're good. Like I'm not worried about it all. 75, 80 is where you start to feel a little, I don't know. I think we're probably in the same boat, just different. I don't know. It's also so much of it is contingent on how good do you think Wisconsin really is? Like
exactly. If it's Penn State or Oregon, you're putting Mark Gronowski out if he's able to go.
It's not even about respect right now. Like you can respect the program and respect Luke Fickell, even though they haven't done well and he hasn't done well in Madison, and still think that they're not very good because they're not.
Everybody has a couple bad years or a down year. Like Wisconsin as a program is still Wisconsin. Like I don't buy into all that.
You can respect Wisconsin and still trot out Hank Brown and expect them to win. Expect yourself to win. I think we've heard a little bit about Hank Brown being like having more of an upside as a passer. He's a lot more physically. I just think of him as a guy who's going to be physically ready to play if you need him to. I mean, obviously, like we've talked about last against Indiana, the situation was not ideal. Going in late against the top 15 team in the country, now top 10 team in the country, and trying to mount a comeback. But to me, man, you just, in my opinion, just have to roll with Hank. Like, and I've seen people clamoring for Jeremy Hecklinsky because he has the fun bit to him, the little bit of Drew Tate, the little bit of gamer to him. But Hank Brown has started games in the SEC. He's thrown touchdown passes. He's played at Iowa. He's played when it matters. You get him in a situation where you just give him the reins and he goes, and maybe things change. Maybe he buckles down a little bit, plays a little bit better. One. And two, I've also heard a conversation of folks saying, well, and this just doesn't go with fans. I've seen media members mentioning like playing multiple quarterbacks. If Mark Gronowski is healthy or healthy enough to play, he's going to play. If he's hurt, they'll put somebody else in. They're not going to give Hank Brown a half and Jeremy Hecklinsky a half. Have you ever watched Kirk Ferentz coach football? Like, if it's Hank Brown, it's Hank Brown.
We watched Deacon Hill for how many games?
If it's Jeremy Hecklinsky, it's Jeremy Hecklinsky. And they're not going to Jackson Stratton. They've seen enough of Jackson Stratton. Yes, he won you a couple games last year, but he managed those games. You go to Hank Brown and you stick with Hank Brown.
I'm with you. It just does, especially in a Big Ten rivalry game. Like it's just not going to happen. But with that being said, I do think you need to give Hecklinsky a little bit of love because he's clearly made up ground in this quarterback race. He's probably really started to piece it together here over the last couple of weeks. And the other part is I still kind of stand by my skepticism of Hank Brown following the Indiana game. But I'm also self-aware enough, and after reflecting, it's different when the game plan's around you. Mm-hmm. And the team's ready for it. We'll dive into the matchup breakdown with Wisconsin here in a minute, but I'm going to say this really quick about what I think is going to happen versus what I think should happen. I think Mark should sit for this week unless he's 95%. I think you need to give Mark credit because I think Kirk kind of alluded to it yesterday. Mark's the one who told Kirk he couldn't decelerate. If you can't decelerate, the chance and increase for significant injury substantially increases. So despite how important that game could have been for Iowa, whatever, you have to give credit to Mark and the medical staff and Kirk holding them out. Okay.
And Mark being honest.
Yes, that's the correct decision.
Yeah.
I think they should sit Mark, barring a crazy emergency, right? What I think they're planning on is I think they're splitting 1 reps and 2 different game plans this week with Mark and Hank to get the offense continue to be comfortable in the event Mark cannot go. So Hank has a game plan and favorite plays he's more comfortable running, and the team's prepared and practiced with Hank's plays and game plan, but also got that work in with Mark. Because again, from what we know, Mark is practice. That's what Kirk said yesterday, right? I think Kirk, barring Mark and everybody else saying he can't go, is planning on starting Mark on Saturday. Unless something rises up to where they're not confident in it, he can't run, he can't do it, whatever the case may be. Because the other aspect of this entire equation, Elliot, is the fact he believes the room is healthier, and the room is undoubtedly healthier from a floor standpoint compared to what they've had. So I think Kirk's more reluctant to potentially sit Mark in favor of another guy if he has to. That's what I think is going to happen.
You mentioned, and this will probably be the last mention from us of Hecklinsky, because I don't think he's going to see the field on Saturday.
I don't either, but they're still talking, yes, you're right.
There has been, like, every time, maybe not Kirk, but more or less every time Tim Lester has talked about Jeremy Hecklinsky, anytime I've talked to anybody behind the scenes about Jeremy Hecklinsky, and Kirk has brought this up himself too, and he had this grin on his face at Iowa's Open Kids Day practice, is like, everybody's like, yeah, he's got a little something. He's got a little juice.
Yeah.
So don't rule out the future of Jeremy Hecklinsky. And
Absolutely not.
Yeah. And I think I would guess, and I'm hoping to talk to a few people here either today or tomorrow. I would guess that there is probably a contingency, like more of a contingency plan than maybe we would expect for Hecklinsky, just in case, Mark can't go and then Hank gets hurt. Like, the last thing you want is to be in the same situation you were in last week with Hank Brown, where you're like, oh crap, nobody was expecting this. But we've also heard that Heck got some reps last week during the bye week too with the ones, or I guess the twos, because the ones were
well, the elevated ones, because
exactly.
Everybody else is resting, right? Yeah.
Right. So that is probably the most I'll say about Hecklinsky. The other thing that we need to talk about too, regarding personnel, is Jade Montgomery being at the mic. Yes. I'll have something on him either today or tomorrow, but he is interesting. I've heard, again, from people behind the scenes that they love him, what he does. He's just 5'10". He's not the typical size that you want for your mic. And we may have seen the ramifications on that on a ball where he was sent on a blitz and Mendoza hit, I think it was Surratt on a seam shot, and Montgomery was right in his face. He had his arms up, but he's 5'10". Now, if that was
when he got drilled?
There was one of them. Yeah, there were a couple. If it was I think it was in the second half. But if that was Harrell, maybe that ball gets tipped. So that's just an example of how that different personnel can change things. So the way he was talked about yesterday by some of the players, by Kirk, was, we're rolling with him. That's our mic. That's our mic on Saturday. But is it? Are they going to roll with Carson Shire at the mic and put Jackson Rexroth at the wheel, and then have it maybe like a Van Kiekerix or somebody else at the Leo? Like, and maybe they're going to just avoid running a traditional 4-3, and they're going to stick with that 4-2-5 with Zach Lutmer on the field more often. Like, I am not sold on the fact that Jaden Montgomery is your Mike. I think he is there for the sake of depth, and you start Cam Buffington next year and Carson Shire, because they've already been doing the Carson Shire, Mike, and Jackson Rexroth at the will when they run the 4-2-5 on passing downs. Like, that's already been happening.
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts. One, I don't think that that's crazy. Two, I mean this with all due respect to Jay Montgomery. He's been an ultimate teammate, according to literally everybody. All the coaches, Kirk's raved about it. His teammates have raved about it. Seth Wallace is happy he got in there. And this is going to sound pretentious on my part, but please, I'm not intending it to be pretentious, okay? I'm just using this as an example. What's the first thing that's said about Jay every single time by Kirk Ferentz?
He's short.
That's the equivalent of saying, yeah, he's a really nice guy, but it's always followed by a but, right?
Jaden Montgomery's hard in the Kirk Ferentz friend zone is what you're telling me, Dave.
I think so. But the other side of it too is, and this is where my case would be to play Montgomery more than what you're saying in terms of what they could do, not what what they could do. Let's not act like Wisconsin's quarterbacks are good. Need a solid tackler, slow down the run. The run game hasn't been good. Their offensive line's been atrocious. Jay Montgomery has enough speed to be a blitzing linebacker. I'm not going to be surprised if Phil just dials up a freaking storm on blitzing, because there has not been one game. I'll need to double check this. There's not been one game I've looked at this season of Wisconsin and thought, you know what, that's competent quarterback play.
Yeah.
They're not good right now. And now I do think the bad offensive line's something to do with it. I think they have a couple weapons at receiver a little bit. I mean, I think Vince Anthony is a guy that can do some damage. They have Lance Mason on the inside, but like, this is not a good offensive football team. Elliot, let me throw this at you. Wisconsin, in the last 7 conference games, has scored 14 or more once.
Who was that against?
Nebraska, and they still lost by 20. Let me go back through and read this. I looked this up today because I was just so curious, right? I'll read you everything from last year. So they had a couple big games, right? They had Purdue, they last October 5th, a year ago almost, right? 52-6 win. Rutgers 42-7 win. Northwestern 23-3 win. That's when everything turned. 28-13 loss to Penn State. 42-10 loss to Iowa. 16-13 loss to Oregon. 44-25 lost to Nebraska. 24-7 lost to Minnesota. Let's go to this year's conference games. 27-10 lost to Maryland. 24-10 lost to Michigan. They don't put up points, dude.
No.
And that's something that is incredible. Like, and the other part is, I brought this up a little bit earlier. Remember, they led Miami, Ohio 3-0 at half, and they still only won 17-0 because they had a late touchdown in the fourth, and they scored in the third quarter. There's not a lot of pressure on the defense here, man. Unless they do something totally different than what every other team that's played them this season has done.
And like Iowa defensively, I mean, no.
I'm not going to bet on it. I'm not saying it's impossible, but like no reasonable person's going to look at this and say, yeah, you know what? I'm going to bet on it. They've scored 14 or more twice this season, 17 and 14.
What was their non-con like other than Alabama?
Miami, Ohio 17-0, Middle Tennessee 42-10.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, my point is, Iowa doesn't need to get fancy here.
Mm-mm.
they pressure the quarterback and they stop a run game who their leading rusher is only averaging 4.2 yards per carry. And that's Dylan Jones. They only have one other back with more than 100 yards, and they're averaging 3.9 a carry.
Wow. And I'm imagining Billy Edwards is not going to be back. Do we know that for sure?
I don't think we know that, but I do think they talked a lot about Hunter Simmons. Let's put it that way. I would need to double check Luke Fickell's transcript, but from everything I've been reading, and I don't think Edwards is going to play.
I don't think Edwards is special anyway.
That's kind of my. It's like a triangle, right? You have a cliff, a hard place, and a boulder, and there's your options at quarterback.
We said this. I might have said this in the preseason pod when we were breaking down the schedule. Billy Edwards is not the savior of that program.
No, and I think the quarterback play is taking a little bit too much rap, man. Excuse my French, it's a bleep show across the board.
Danny O'Neal's not good. Hunter Simmons was at SIU before this. So Southern Illinois, I think, is what I heard. But this should not be – I don't think it's going to be 35-3. I don't think it's going to be 35-0. Of course, we'll get into our score predictions, and you'll read our pregame or our preview from Sean, and then Dave and I weigh in at the end. But it should be at least a 2 or 3 score game. It's all contingent on quarterback play for Iowa.
Yeah.
Are there any other like real injuries or health things or personnel changes that we need to talk about besides those two?
I don't think so, because most of the other players have been hurt for the most part all year anyway.
Yeah. No Jazz Patterson, no TJ Washington.
Xavier Williams is likely to be back, it sounds like.
Right. I'll be intrigued to see how much he plays this weekend. We got to talk to Nathan McNeil this week, which I thought was interesting. So if you can
roll down with Kamari too, because Kamari's body's healthy outside, obviously had the injury, but like he hasn't taken a beating on Saturdays because he's been hurt, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I honestly, like, obviously you prefer to have the full roster of running backs that you have, the full group. But I think the skill set wise that Kamari, Xavier Williams, and Nathan McNeil complement each other really well. And that is like, if Iowa went into the season with these 3 guys as their guys, I would have been comfortable with that. So assuming Xavier Williams can play at, relatively full strength, I think they're going to be solid out of the backfield.
Iowa just needs to dominate the trenches and take care of the football.
And
this has a Caden Weegen touchdown written all over it, Elliot.
Yeah.
This has Iowa getting multiple turnovers written all over it. Forgive my ignorance. This game should be more than 3.5 points in Iowa's favor. And I don't think Wisconsin fans are probably really pissed if they're listening to this. I'm not saying Iowa's a special team by any means, but the totality of the season, Iowa's in a much better place right now. And I don't think you can argue that.
The only things that you can really point to that favor Wisconsin, in my opinion, right now are, 1, the run defense, which we'll see how much that ends up favoring them. 2, if it's Hank Brown, like that's something that they can latch onto, as like, we can get after him. He's a guy who isn't super experienced.
Yep.
And 3, it's coming off last year, 42 push-ups, and it's a night game in Camp Randall, which I think Camp Randall's super overrated, but it is a night game at home. And like I think
jump around's pretty sweet outside the fact that I feel like the press box is going to collapse.
Yeah, jump around is cool. But and then lastly, like you said, and a lot of people have said, this might be Wisconsin's last chance at a win, because next week it's number 1 Ohio State, then it's number 2 Oregon in Eugene, then it's Washington, who has a up and coming quarterback who's really good. Then it's at Indiana, then it's number 22 Illinois, and then it's at Minnesota. So Minnesota might be your last chance, and by then you might be beaten to death. So
I would argue this game could break Wisconsin's will to play the rest of the season. I think they're going to put everything into this game. And I think this would be the final straw for like the fan base when it comes to Luke Fickell too.
His buyout is nuts. Like they're going to wait until the end of the season if they decide to move on from him. And it's also, I think it's lessened by if he gets hired for another job, which he will. So yeah, he's
it just wasn't meant to work from the start, in my opinion.
That was just a bad hire. It's just not a fit. I mean, the success at Cincinnati, we could see at some point later on in his career if it's replicable, but right now it's really not seeming so. So,
it's such an interesting 2-week span for Iowa, just from like what it could mean for each opposing program, because this could be the game that breaks Wisconsin's will. And I don't blame them. That schedule sucks, man. Now, to be fair, I picked them to go 4-8 preseason, and I said they're going to be the best 4-8 team ever. I mean, now I would probably throw that out the window because they were even worse than I thought from what I've seen thus far. Could that change? Absolutely. Anyway, if Penn State loses to Iowa next week, there's no way they keep James Franklin through the season. I think if Iowa beats Penn State, they're going to fire James Franklin.
Do you know what Franklin's buyout looks like?
I was just about to look up.
Because
it's Penn State. Let's put it that way.
Right. Fickell's is crazy. And again, you have to assume he'll get a job elsewhere. So maybe that lessens things. And if boosters behind the scenes at Wisconsin are like, we are over this, then they will make a change. Bring back Paul Christ. Like, honestly, he'd be a better option.
Come on. Are they gonna? Dude, I just want, hang on. I'm sorry. I thought this would be a quick search. It has not been a quick search.
I think it would be too.
50 million.
Whoa, yo. Okay. Yeah. Man, James Franklin has a hell of a
God, that is the freaking best job in America, dude. A fired college football coach. Mm-hmm. All right, well, never mind. There goes my prediction. That's up. I thought it was gonna be closer to like 25-30. Holy crap!
Yeah, and that's still a lot. But anyway, boosters will more often than not pony up the cash if and when they have it.
Penn State should just call Stanford's donor.
Yeah,
who just gave him $50 million.
Anyway, should we make score predictions and talk Big Ten hoops?
Yeah, let's do it. I will say I haven't finalized the score yet, but if Iowa scores 17, they're going to win.
Yeah. I'll say Iowa 27, Wisconsin 10. I mean, that's not finalized either. Obviously, things will change depending on what we learn about quarterback. And we might not know until the availability report's out 2 hours before kick.
I bet that's when we find out.
I bet that's when we find out too. And Dave and I will be there, of course, to report on all that. And we'll have Sean at home base helping us out as well. So, stay tuned with us for that.
I'll go 24-10.
Okay.
It's gonna be an ugly game, but Iowa's just better on both line of scrimmages. I don't think Wisconsin's quarterback play is going to be good enough. Again, I'm not saying it's impossible for Wisconsin to beat Iowa. I'm not that naive. But based on what we've seen, Elliot, from both teams, unless something crazy unforeseen happens, this should be a game that Iowa wins. But the other side of it, too, is watched Iowa crap the bed against UCLA and Michigan State last year. I mean, we saw it, and they had Caleb Johnson.
I'm feeling pretty confident. I think this offense is a little bit more explosive. I think having 2 weeks to get Hank Brown prepared, if there was an ideal situation for Hank Brown to be taken over, it's after a bye week against a pretty bad Big Ten team in the middle of the conference schedule. And TJ Hall, I think he gets his first pick this weekend. How's that?
That's crazy. He still has one pick.
He has that. He gets maybe a pick six and maybe another 1 or 2 interceptions as the season goes along, and he solidifies himself in that elite echelon of DBs because he's been freaking awesome this year.
He's been really good. He's been a lot better than I thought he was going to be. So you got to give credit to him.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he'd be good. I didn't think he'd be great. I think he's played great this season.
Yeah, he's been awesome.
So, all right. Switch over to hoops. Really excited about this hoop season. I can you almost just feel like more energy around the program from the outside. I think Ben McCollum has, I hate the term win the off season, Elliot. I really do. He's won the off season. Interestingly enough, I don't know if you saw this, but CBS Sports put out a Candid Coaches project a few days ago. Ben McCollum was named the best new hire in college basketball from more than 100 coaches across the country. So that's a perfect fit. They know what his system does. A couple people talked about studying what he did at Northwest Missouri State. It's a lot of excitement, and I think it's going to be a very different overall team than we've seen. Bennett Sturts, obviously, as we talked about at the top of the show, all the eyes are going to be on him, and that's a guy where he just wants to play ball, and it's hilarious. He doesn't deal with any of this extra crap. Like, that's just a guy who wants to get in the gym, never go on social media, ignore everybody else, and hang out and just play and just do his thing. So I think if there's a guy that's walking into a situation like this, like, you love that mentality from who's going to be the undisputed leader of the team. And it's even more interesting, the fact that we've gotten to talk to both of them. Elliot, I know you talked to Bennett extensively, throughout your time at the other place, and now here. Does he just remind you of Ben McCollum in some ways?
Yes and no, in that I have seen Bennett Sturts smile more than I've seen Ben McCollum.
Yeah, that's probably true.
But yeah, it's Bennett. Bennett is, there's just a few things that strike me when it comes to him. Is he didn't do the graphic thing. He just straight up said, I'm going to Iowa. Was offered a lot of money from other programs when he had that do not contact tag on. And like, he's engaged to his girlfriend who's at Kansas State. He's not doing the Playboy thing. You know what I mean? Like,
he's not taking the elite college athlete, big-headed ego trip.
He's not Spencer Rattler, like he's just who he is. And that's
to be fair, Spencer Rattler. Talk about a guy who I did not think, I thought was going to have so many attitude problems and stuff going to the NFL. Yeah, that high school tape that came out about him, you know the clip I'm talking about?
Yes.
That was so damning for him, but like, talk about a total flip of a switch from a maturity standpoint. So I want to give him credit because I think I went public on my Twitter about that, and I was like, why? It's not gonna happen, but he did. So anyway, I'm sorry, not Iowa related. Go ahead.
So Bennett is just a dude who loves ball, and it's really that simple. And I think you get that type of mentality, that type of disposition that he and McCollum share, and that's why it's a match made in heaven, And we talk to people behind the scenes, and there's almost no updates on Bennett Sturts this offseason because he's just awesome. Like, he's just really good at basketball, and it's just that, like, we're talking about other pieces of the roster. So yeah, I mean, and it's funny because we see these availabilities, we see him on podcasts and stuff like that, and he has more of that Ben McCollum demeanor to him, and then you get him off camera, and he's just fun and just a dude, and so I think if he lets that personality out even a little bit, and Iowa fans are going to love him anyway, but he is a Missouri kid. He has that Iowa, like he's happy to stop and take pictures. He's happy to stop and talk to people. He's going to be, all of the guys really are going to be loved by the fan base because, like McCollum, one, there's just a sense of humility there, but two, they get it in they have to be members, not members of the community, but involved in the community. And I think it's still a bit of a shock to the system for guys like Tavian Banks or Isaiah Howard who haven't had this level of stardom. and
Sure.
it's an opportunity to continue to grow their brands as well. Like Bennett is already the paunch guy, the burrito lift guy. So yeah, I'm really intrigued by the season. Obviously, Sean will be there, and like if there's anything that's telling about the way we're handling this Big Ten Media Days is that we have somebody going. Like there just wasn't this level of intrigue for the last, and it's because it's a new staff, right? And it's a new group and all of these things. But I think that's also telling of fan intrigue right now as well.
I have a few more storylines I want to hit, but Elliot, did you see the uniforms?
The uniforms?
They're bad.
The
Now, I knew
Iowa?
Iowa ones. They just put up the official picture on Hawkeye Sports.
Did they?
I'm gonna text this to you
Okay.
because I want your live reaction. It's not great. Sorry, people hear me type.
My phone is charging, so
Oh, well, I texted to you. Okay, cool. It's really bad, dude.
okay, I'll go to the website.
I just wish they stuck with the old script and they had that old gold, but they have it's gray and they have a big tiger hawk right in the chest, like right here.
I'm still working on it on my laptop.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I got you. I know we're spending too much time on this, but like I'm not a fan of these, and the reaction I've seen from people online, it's not been great. So I'm very curious if they end up sticking with these or if they're gonna scrap it.
Is it up
Anyway,
on?
well, it's just up on their official roster page.
Okay, my phone's charging. I'll grab it. Sorry, this is terrible podcasting.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Anyway, so while Elliot's gone and grabbing his phone, another big storyline is I need to see how Alvaro can kind of transition into an Iowa big, because I think he's so perfect for McCollum's system, but I need to see if his defense is really taking a step forward. But at the end of the day, too, you also got to trust McCollum and his staff if they're going to be able to put him in a position where if there are some shortcomings defensively, how are the other four guys going to be able to step up and mix and match to kind of minimize that impact? Because as I've written about for months, Elliot, I'm sure you've done the same thing. The one thing I've gotten from a lot of people when it comes to McCollum is if you don't play defense, you're not bleeping playing, is what I've been told by more than one of his former players.
Yeah. So I went and found those. They've had these jerseys before. They played in these jerseys.
They're different though, aren't they? I think it's a little different. They haven't.
No,
well,
literally.
Aren't they? No, it used to be the gray one. Then it was the black Tiger Hawk, not the gold Tiger Hawk.
Let me send it to you. I literally Googled Peyton Sandfort and found that.
Are those the same ones?
They're the same ones. I'm DMing it to you on Twitter right now.
This is great podcasting.
I just sent it to you.
No, well, there you go. Okay,
literally the exact same.
Well, do you know what uniform I'm talking about though? Because
I
they
do.
playing the gray. That was the one I remembered. They were doing the gray ones with the black one, and that was just not great.
No, but
so
and
anyway,
that's just roster photos. So we might see new uniforms this year. I hope we do, because they did get new practice uniforms. I think it looked all Nike schools did. So
yeah, I like the old script.
Yeah.
Gold. Yep. Those are Iowa's got some of the cleanest, I think, when they stick with that. But anyway, yeah, I'm really interested to hear about how Alvaro's progressing, because we didn't get the chance to see him because he was overseas playing with Spain, right?
Yep.
So
of
that's another
course.
one. And another thing is Tate Sage going to play or not? Because there were times, man, where he did look like arguably the best player on the floor in the summer. And I know how crazy that sounds.
I'll start with Alvaro. We got some intel on him a couple weeks ago when I posted the preseason buzz. So that's something to go and check out on Hawkeye Insider. That'll be really interesting to me. I'm really intrigued as to how they decide or how they attempt to defend the rim this year, because they have Trevin Urich, but I don't know that he's ready to play that true 5 spot. Cam Maniau's only 6'9", 6'8". Alvaro is a lot thinner. I think is he 6'10", 6'9", 6'10"? Let me pull up the roster. But anyway,
they listed him at 6'10", but is he 6'10",
okay,
right?
right.
I mean, we know how this goes.
Exactly. So that's the question. And I'm really intrigued as well to see how Trey Thompson fits into the rotation. I think that's something that he kind of, as the year goes along, starts to fit more into the rotation. But as far as Tate Sage goes, that'll be interesting to me too. I think he's a lot more athletic than we anticipated. I think he's a better shooter than we anticipated. He didn't put up much for numbers, but he was on a team with, I think, an Oklahoma football commit in high school, along with his twin brother, who's also playing, I think he's playing D2 ball at Pittsburgh State. But yeah, lots. I think the main question for me, which might surprise some people, is how does the chemistry get cultivated in year one? Because it's not a concern so much as just something that I'm watching, because the chemistry got cultivated pretty quick at Drake, right? And there were some new names, new faces, new pieces in the rotation. And now it's year one at a new place again. And you have a lot of that same continuity from last year's Drake team in Bennett, in Tavian Banks, in Isaiah Howard, in Cam Maniau, in Cale Combs. But you throw in such critical pieces like Brendan Housen, like Alvaro Fulgaris, potentially like a Cooper Koch, like Trey Thompson, that could be part of the rotation or be really important parts of the rotation. Because Housen might shoot 40 to 45% from three this year. Like,
I just want to see him launch from 30.
Yeah.
That's all I care about.
And Fulgaris was the dude, not on his team at Robert Morris, but in the entire conference. He was the player of the year. So how do you balance these, maybe not alpha personalities off the court, but alpha personalities on the court? Because Housen is the only, the only really consistently on the floor power four guy on this roster. Alvaro was the dude in that conference. Bennett Sturts was the dude in the MVC. Cooper Koch was the only guy who was back from last year's team. Tavian Banks has apparently taken his game to another level. Trey Thompson was a top 100 recruit. Like, how do you mesh all of it? How do you put it all together? So, and on the front of rim protection, is Trevin Urach?
I don't think you can afford to redshirt him. I just don't. I think you can play him sparingly, but you have to play him. But I think you're right. But it's also a thing, dude, where you have to trust Ben McCollum's culture, and the coaching staff to be able to make it work. Because I know there were certain people he did not offer because he didn't think he would fit in with his team. And you need to give him credit for that awareness, because he goes, there are so many big time programs and stuff that will throw out a term called "screw you money" to make it appropriate. Because they have that sort of money, but they don't think about cultivation. They're thinking about, oh, we have the biggest roster, we pay the most money, they're going to win. No, they're not. That's not. I mean, obviously, it's great to have more resources than a lot of teams, but if you don't know how to utilize the resources or impact a culture and make a culture, it doesn't mean anything. Right. So I think that's the big thing. But the counterpoint to that is, like, Elliot, people get upset about the way people schedule or whatever. There's a reason they scheduled Robert Morris in Western Illinois first, and then they play Xavier at Iowa, and then they have Southeast Missouri and Chicago State. There's a reason why 4 of your 5 are cupcakes. I know people will point to, well, Robert Morris made the tournament last year and only lost by 10 to Alabama. That's fantastic. You know how many of those players are returning? Their whole starting five's gone.
Yeah.
Respect to last year's team, but it's not last year's Robert Morris.
Chicago State is a team that UNI schedules to beat by 50, just so everybody knows. Just so everybody knows. But there's strategy to that. And as a UNI alum and fan, I hate it. I would love to see them play UNI. I would love to see them play Drake. That's a conversation for a different day. But that Xavier game at home, I think that was scheduled by Fran, if I'm remembering, or at least when Fran was on staff.
I believe so, yes.
Head coach.
I believe I would need to double check that, but I believe you're correct.
That'll be sweet. I mean, it's a first-year head coach situation there too, but
it's the Jack Nungy Bowl.
Yes, but that'll be really interesting. That'll probably be one of the, if Iowa State's the most fun of the non-con, and of course they'll play, I think, Ole Miss and then potentially two other teams in a MTE, but
Grand Canyon or Utah. And by the way, one of those games could start at 11 o'clock because it's on the West Coast, and it's the night before Thanksgiving. By the way,
that should be illegal. Like we're gonna be traveling for the Nebraska game too, and I'm gonna be out in the Nebraska area for a prep red zone thing and possibly prep hoops too. So that's gonna be a hell of a week.
But by the way, the at Washington game tips off at 10.
Why? My go-to for these late games is tweeting 10 p.m. or like 9 p.m. tips should be illegal. This 10 p.m. stuff is gonna suck. Yeah. At least we have a team of 3. Maybe we can rotate for those late games. But yeah,
gonna watch either way.
Right. It'll be really fun to see what Sean gets from the weekend. And of course, he's gonna have content just himself from or Big Ten Media Days for men's basketball, wherever or whenever. It's in Chicago. Is that this week?
It's tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay. I knew women's was today, but I didn't know
women's Iowa's going to be on TV in about 30 minutes from now, from when we're recording this. But so this will be up by the time like Iowa's gone. But
and then men's basketball, Iowa Media Day is next week, next Wednesday around.
Yeah. So we'll be probably three deep on that, and then I'll be at Big Ten. I mean the Iowa women's next week as well. So it's a busy time of year, but there's a lot going on.
This crossover time is really fun, but holy crap. I am really glad that we are all on the same team because it's going to save us all some stress and some sleep.
Yeah, no doubt. Anything else you want to hit on? I felt like we should start talking a little bit of basketball. I mean, we're going to have a lot more basketball talk as time comes. Thank God there's only one transfer portal, by the way.
Oh, I'm not.
I know.
I'm not even Catholic. Shout out to Sean.
Well, you know what, though? And this will be a conversation we'll have as the transfer portal approaches. They're not going to be able to evaluate the quarterbacks in the spring and then decide to go get one. Iowa's going to have to roll with who they got.
I'm curious what
if they don't go after anybody during that time.
Yeah. I feel like it's going to just only cause, one, we might see more of what Retzloff did. Well, what do you mean?
Remember Bo Prabula? They were in the playoffs last year, and he had to enter the portal as Penn State's backup quarterback.
That, but 2, what Jake Retzloff from Tulane did, where he just had to leave the team and then go somewhere else as a walk-on. Like,
well, that was for different circumstances, but
very different circumstances.
Yeah,
still, that'll be interesting. That January 2nd through January 16th window is going to be something. And then
I'm really glad they started on New Year's Day.
Yeah, that would blow. But also, was the previous window, there's a really long one in December, right?
Correct. It was 30 days, and then they had a 10-day one in May.
30
April,
days.
May.
Golly. And that was wild because it was during bowl prep. So, oh man, this is going to be.
Coaches have to be so happy too.
I just hope that they also stick with one and make it this date, so we just know what's going to happen. Obviously, college sports is the landscape is changing at all times right now, and has been for the last 5 years. Hopefully, we don't get any more COVID years out of it. But
they need to do 5 years across the board, and I think that's what's going to end up happening. I don't think there'll be medical red shirts. I don't think there'll be anything. It'll just be 5 years.
Huh. Okay. Well, we shall see.
It's my prediction. So I don't know. Anything else you want to hit on?
No.
I think we
we got it.
I think so. Again, Sean's going to be on site tomorrow. Elliot and I are going to have a lot more coverage. I'm going to have some more women's basketball stuff coming up today, and then we'll be at Wisconsin So
We will.
Podcast post game probably Sunday.
Yeah, that'll be you and Sean.
Yeah, probably Sunday. I'll be traveling back. I'm gonna make it a day trip. We're gonna see how that goes. But
Enjoy. Fiance and I are heading up there and spending the weekend. So yeah, it'll be fine.
I got coffee. I'll be all right.
There you go.
Well, I don't see much anyway. So again, David Eickholt, Eliot Clough. Be sure to stay tuned to HawkeyeInsider.com for the most in-depth Iowa coverage out there.